Welcome to episode number 100 of the Marine Layer podcast. We welcome on Mariners broadcaster Dave Sims. If you like stories, and especially stories about baseball, I think this interview is going to be for you, so stay tuned. The Mariners also acquired Gregory Santos from the White Sox over the weekend.
Here's your reminder before we start the show. If you're listening, make sure to download our episodes, rate and review, leave it 5 stars. It truly, truly helps us out a ton. Leave a written review too. And if you're watching on YouTube, you see that big red subscribe button? Just go ahead and click it. It helps us out a ton, just like the audio downloads do. And if you like and comment, it helps the show get out a little bit more as well. Once you're done with that, you can follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod.
Let's get it rolling.
The pitch from Acevedo. A drive deep to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. 1-1 from Jansen. There you go. Left field. We got a tie ball game. Julio. Oh, baby, what a moment. Tie ball game is 7-7.
We welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network, recording here on Monday evening, February 5th. And did you hear the 3 digits at the beginning, dog? We have made it to 100.
It's pretty wild. How are you going to start reading out the shows and your intros moving forward? Are you going to say 101, 102, or are you going to go 101, 102?
I guess that's a decision for Thursday when I have to say it for the first time. I think the best people, they'll just go out on a whim and it's right off the top of their head. I got to make it catchy though, right?
Well, whatever flows best. That's what I'm saying. I just didn't know if you've given it any thought or if you've decided to just, like you said, kind of wing it when the time comes.
All right, dog. I had some last minute inspiration. This is, if there's anything to make you go watch the show on YouTube, it's to see what I'm about to do right now. There's a very famous photo when it comes to 100 in sports. A very famous photo of Wilt Chamberlain sitting in the locker room after he scored 100 points. And dog, I just got to say, oh, upside down. There we go. Look at us.
No, you had it right the first time.
Oh, this looks right for me.
Well, for me, it looks like 001. There you go. For the listeners, now it looks like 100.
Okay,
there you go.
So whichever way you view this, if it looked right for me or if it looks right for Lyle, now you got 100, baby. All right, we're going to get one last one of this just in case it flips around like this. But we did it, Lyle. We did it. 100. Smile. Smile for the photo. We're going in the paper tomorrow because we hit triple digits. How about that? That's exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Look, we kind of did our yearly wrap up at the end of December, so we don't have to spend a whole 20 minutes or whatever diving into all of it. I will say, though, I think we've mentioned this before, that most the stat is 90% of podcast episodes don't get past the third one. And then an additional 90% beyond that, I believe, do not get past the 15th or 20th. So, yeah, we're sitting at 100. Not everybody does that. And the fact we've kept this going and the fact people are interested enough to follow along is really, really cool. So I know we always talk about it when this stuff comes up, but it's really all a credit to you guys who are nice enough and who are nice enough to take the time and listen, in which we are very, very appreciative.
And it's very on brand that we're about to hit a 100 right as we're about to dive into season number 2. So it's exciting, and we could be at episode number 200 by sometime. I can't do math, but we can figure it out.
Well,
52 weeks in a year, 2 episodes a week. No, probably a little over a year from now, but given an emergency episode or 2, you never know.
Right? Yeah, I was going to say it should be about a year. So yeah, it's exciting.
Give or take. And lucky for us, a lot of emergency episodes because of Jerry DiPoto doing what he did this weekend. Wow. Sources are telling me that one of the best bullpens in baseball somehow managed to get better this weekend.
Doesn't it feel like an eon since that trade's happened, too? That trade happened on Saturday, like 2 days ago at the time of recording this, 4 days ago at the time that this episode gets released. It feels like it was forever ago. I know we didn't do an emergency episode about it, but it feels like forever since we've hopped on this mic since the trade happened, because I feel like I've just been itching to talk about it. Now we're finally going to sit here and talk about it because Don't undersell this move, people. This is a big move that the Mariners made, because it's a move that makes their bullpen go from good to a legitimate threat, like a deadly threat.
And he honestly replaces what the Mariners lost in the Jorge Polanco trade just days earlier with Justin Topa. The more I look at Gregory Santos, which they acquired from the White Sox in exchange for Prelander Berroa, Zach DeLoach, and the 69th overall pick in this upcoming draft, you can trade compensatory draft picks, and that's what Jerry did to make this happen. Santos was expected to be the closer in Chicago this season. However, bad teams don't really need closers, which made him expendable. I don't know how many people thought he was going to be available, but man, oh man, according to our friends over at the Pinwheels and Ivy podcast, who wanted a synopsis on the trade from our side, Lyle went on with them earlier this offseason when he got dragged through the mud for his Luis Robert trade package idea. Went on there and sort of settled the water down with a lot of White Sox Nation, but they were mentioning to us, hey, like, this guy Santos was supposed to be the closer this year for the White Sox, and it's a deadly combination. He's got a sinker that gets up over 100 miles an hour. He's got a slider that grades out run value wise as the second best slider in all of baseball, behind Clayton Kershaw. He's got a pretty good slider himself, and Kershaw threw over 300 more sliders than Santos did this past season, and he only had one more run value, and run value accumulates in volume, not on a rate basis. So that kind of tells you how good that pitch is. And the Mariners did it for trading a minor league reliever, a minor league outfielder, and a draft pick for him. And all of a sudden, that Justin Topa role, it seems like it's filled right back up again.
Gregory Santos is 24 years old. He has 5 years of club control. For people that are upset about losing Prelander Berroa, a guy who is essentially unproven, has barely thrown any big league innings, and even though he has high upside, is a guy that you hope becomes Gregory Santos. That's what everybody's saying, and I agree. The Mariners, if they kept Berroa, hoped he would turn into Gregory Santos. Instead, now they have Santos, and instead you just sacrifice 1 year of club control. Again, 5 years of control at 24 years old for a guy that has absolutely disgusting stuff like Santos does. You talked about the slider. He throws a sinker that was in year one of its debut. He had not thrown a sinker before this year. And it gets up to triple digits, often 101, 102 miles an hour. So you're throwing bullets like that at 101, 102, and then you're dropping in that deadly slider that not only misses a ton of bats, his slider gets up to 95 miles an hour. Paul Sewald's fastball basically topped out at 95 miles an hour. This guy is electric, dude.
Yeah. That's a pretty good way to put it. And just to remind people, Prelander Berroa is only 1 year younger than Gregory Santos. Prelander Berroa is 23 years old, and he was going to be making his full season debut with the Mariners this season. We assumed he's going to make his full season debut with the Mariners. Santos already has an entire year under his belt. So this will be the 2023 Gregory Santos year for Prelander Berroa on the South Side. I don't know if that's a great comparison, though, Lyle, with saying it was really easy for people to throw around and say, hey, Santos is what Prelander Berroa wishes he's going to be at his peak in the big leagues. They're not really the same pitcher, to be honest. Santos has unbelievable stuff, but Prelander Berroa is the guy with the 37% strikeout rate in AA this year, while Santos was he's about a league average strikeout guy with below a better than league average walk rate at about 6%. Meanwhile, Berroa was walking over double that, 14.4% in AA this past season. It's not really an apples to apples comparison, but for what the Mariners have sort of archetyped their bullpen around, it fits right in. I mean, you got a sinker baller in Taylor Saucedo. Andres Munoz is transformed into a sinker baller, and the focus really of the Mariners bullpen last year especially was to not allow any home runs. Speaking of not allowing home runs, Lyle, do you want to guess how many home runs the top three, the trio in the Mariners bullpen, Munoz, Brash, and now Santos, have combined to allow last year?
So the answer for Santos is 2. He does not give up home runs. He doesn't give up barrels, and we can get to that in a minute. But it's 2 for Santos. Brash, I'm going to say 4. And Munoz, I'm going to say 5. It's lower. Okay.
They gave up a combined, the three of them gave up a combined 7 home runs in 189 innings.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's hard to hit those dudes. I mean, is this bullpen going to be good?
The way to protect against volatility as a bullpen is to not give up home runs. Bullpens are notoriously year to year streaky. Guys will have bad years just out of nowhere. You know, a big reason why guys have bad years is because they let a couple balls go over the fence. Well, if you just don't allow any home runs, man, it's really hard to get blown up as a reliever, because odds are if you still have great stuff, then your stuff's going to win out if they can't just poke one over the wall.
So can I piggyback on that with Santos here? Because to read his full season numbers from 2023, his ERA was 3.39. It's a really good season for a reliever. But when you talk about not allowing home runs and all the expected stats that Santos held over the course of 23, it represents exactly that. Because all of his underlying numbers say he should have been even better than his 3.39 ERA. xERA 3.11, FIP 2.65, xFIP 3.31, Sierra 3.32. So all those numbers say for as good as Santos was, he actually should have been even better. And a lot of that forms from, he didn't give up a lot of home runs. So the things that were in his control, he did to the pinpoint of his ability.
Do you know how many extra base hits he gave up on his slider this past year?
He gave up 1 home run on his slider, right? Just 1, I want to say. Oh, he didn't give up any.
He gave up 1 double on his slider this year. He allowed on his slider a 196 batting average and a 203 slug.
That's so wild.
And we talk about the sinker as being the pitch that doesn't allow extra base contact. Well, his slider actually flat out didn't allow anything. Period. The only thing you could do with his slider is hit it for a base hit. That's it. Period. And now he's going to go to a pitching development staff that has worked miracles on some of these relievers over the past 2 seasons to form what is arguably the best bullpen in baseball. It is crazy. The imagination is crazy of what the Mariners could do with this guy this upcoming season. What kind of tweaks would they want to make with his slider? What about his sinker? A pitch that, again, he was just trying to feel out this year. And Jason Benetti went on Brock and Salk today to talk about this, today being Monday. And Benetti, he's now the voice of the Tigers, but he called games for the White Sox last season and was up close and personal watching Gregory Santos out of the bullpen. A couple of really just amazing things came out of that conversation, I thought. First off, like he mentioned, he's like, crazy how efficient a guy can be when he's literally just trying to learn that pitch. He spent last year, he ditched his four-seamer because the pitching coach who was in San Francisco with him came over to Chicago with Santos. And they're like, all right, Santos, I don't really love your four-seam fastball. Let's have you learn to throw a sinker. And that's essentially what he spent last year doing. And then second, I know he only had a 6% walk rate, but Benetti goes, he wasn't even very good ahead of hitters. I think his control and command can be way better. With a 6% walk rate that's already there, that's pretty crazy. And last thing, the quote that left a memorable impression with me, he made some of the best hitters in baseball look scared at the plate.
Luis Arraez doesn't strike out ever. And what did Gregory Santos do in year 1 of learning his sinker? He threw 101 down and away to Luis Arraez and made him look stupid on a strikeout. Arraez doesn't strike out. He doesn't strike out, period. But he did against Santos. And to your point about the slider, this is why Santos is primarily a slider first reliever. He throws his slider more than any other pitch. He throws it just over 52% of the time. Sinker comes next, which is normal, as everybody knows nowadays in baseball. You don't have to throw your fastball as your primary pitch. Throw your best pitch that's your primary pitch. Sometimes that's the case with starters too, but that's certainly the case with Santos. We should contextualize his sinker a little bit because you're talking about how it was a pitch he was learning. As he was learning it, while the actual velocity on it is very good, It did get hit around a little bit last year, and this is the one kind of downside with Santos's arsenal. Now, before I even read it out, he may just totally have a 180 this upcoming year, learning with the Mariners staff and getting a new change of scenery. It could be amazing this year. In 2023, opponents hit 343 against the sinker. That's high. That doesn't change the fact that he had a great year overall. But with that pitch, there's still things he needs to learn and kind of feel out the tweaks for. But you know what? I wouldn't be shocked at all if come 2024, both those pitches are just nasty.
And sinkers aren't really supposed to be a swing and miss pitch. Like, if we're thinking about this, I wouldn't be shocked if Santos stays as sort of a 22, 23, 24% strikeout guy, because in the end, he's trying to generate ground balls, and that's what Topa did so well. I wouldn't be overly shocked if that slider becomes like a 2022 Andres Munoz slider and just decimates opponents. But I think a realistic way to look at this is saying, sure, he could be significantly more effective on the mound for the Mariners. I just don't know if that's going to come in the form of strikeouts. I think it might come more in the form of a Justin Topa level of just pure run prevention and just throwing a wet blanket on whoever's at the plate. Because his sinker, while it's hittable, meaning you can put the bat on it, you're not going to do anything with it once you actually hit the baseball.
It may not come through strikeouts, but the run value on it last year was -8. It can improve. And it probably will, because again, he's thrown it for one season. So I think it will improve. And I'm sure the Mariners think it will improve. That's the other part of this too, right? When the trade went down, there was a select group of people, and of course you shouldn't judge how people feel online for the most part, but there were people saying, why did they go out and give up Baroa? Why did they go out and trade for a bullpen arm? Why didn't they just either sign somebody or stick with the knowledge they have and keep these guys that they just find for league minimum and turn them into good relievers? Guys, don't you think if the Mariners of all teams, who have been just impeccable with reliever development, don't you think if they're identifying this guy to go out and trade for, you'd have to think they believe he is going to be not just good, but probably elite. Otherwise, they're not giving up all these guys for a reliever. But to have 5 years of control for a 24-year-old with this type of stuff, I trust. How could you not trust the Mariners at this point to believe what they're seeing in Santos and say, yeah, this guy's going to be a weapon for us?
And I don't know. I don't really understand holding on to Prelin or Burrow when you see what the Mariners can do with relievers. Like, you're like, okay, well, Burrow looks great in the minor leagues. They've still been, again, the Mariners have been frustrated, and they've shown their frustration with his inability to control the strike zone. Like, he would have been up last year, Lyle, if he could throw more strikes and not walk a bunch of guys. I think that's pretty simple, right? He still ended up walking over 14% of his batters last season. If that's below 10%, he's a big leaguer last year. And the Mariners don't have as much bullpen struggle down the stretch because they have another lockdown arm in the bullpen. But they couldn't do that because they didn't trust him. And I don't know if they trusted him any more now than they did back in August and September of last season when they really needed that help. So what's a great way to fix that? If someone else thinks they can do something with him, like the Chicago White Sox, you make the best of the situation, you wish him well, and he's going to get all the opportunity in the world to work out all of his problems at the big league level next year and perhaps leverage situations, because the White Sox don't really have much else. They had Gregory Santos, and they didn't have much else, especially with Liam Hendricks on the shelf. So it's good for him. And it's also good for the Mariners that they get someone who they feel like is a little more proven and a little bit more ready to slide into a role that they feel like has been left in their bullpen, in that void that Justin Topa left, and they insert someone right in with Gregory Santos, who has better stuff than Justin Topa does.
Yeah, this is really exciting. Also, I wouldn't be shocked if Baroa's closing games by the end of the year for the White Sox, maybe halfway through the season. That has to be one of the worst bullpens in baseball, the White Sox.
Well, I wouldn't be shocked either. And Zach DeLoach probably going to get a good chunk of playing time with the White Sox. They don't have the outfield depth, especially in the sort of style that DeLoach was stuck behind Cade Marlowe and Taylor Trammell and Dom Canzone in the Mariners organization. I mean, seriously, like Cade Marlowe, Taylor, and Zach DeLoach were all sort of in the same mold of outfielder, where it was like somewhere between AAA and the major leagues, left-handed hitting, above average power, strikeout problems, could play multiple positions in the outfield. And I mean, that he was last on that list. So he's going to go to Chicago, and he's probably going to play a little bit more. Thankfully, Lyle, there were enough rational people online that I didn't see people be like, we're giving up on Zach DeLoach already?
Yeah. Even you talk about those three. If you want to look at the Mariners' entire outfield depth as a whole, it just felt like DeLoach was stuck. So you take all the starters. You have Julio, you have Haniger, you have Rayleigh, you have Dom Canzone, you have Marlowe, you have Trammell. That's 6 guys ahead of them. And then if you factor in not the platoon guys, if you factor in the utility guys and Demo and Sam Haggerty, there's a lot of guys ahead of Zach DeLoach that are playing the outfield. It made sense to give him a new opportunity, especially if you're going to get an arm that's this good out of the bullpen in Gregory Santos.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Now, I have a question for you, Lyle. There's a couple things that you spurned a discussion of that I want to throw to you, and we can bounce some ideas off each other. We're thinking of how good this bullpen trio is with the Mariners. And there's another notable bullpen trio in the American League West with Josh Hader, Ryan Presley, and Brian Abreu of the Houston Astros. Is this current Mariners trio better than that trio now?
Better than the Astros trio?
Yes.
Is the current Mariners trio better than the Astros' current trio of relievers?
Yes, correct.
Give me the Mariners. I'm taking the Mariners. And maybe some people are going to scratch their heads. Can I give my reasoning behind this?
Yeah, you can give your reasoning.
So this trio of Gregory Santos, Matt Brash, and Andres Munoz finished almost a full win better than the Astros trio in 2023. That's by WAR. The Mariners were almost a full win better. Their projected WAR in 2024. The Mariners sit at 3.4 with that trio. Santos ranks first. Munoz ranks 10th. Brash ranks 11th. The Astros sit at 2.1. Brian Abreu ranks 17th. Hader ranks 20th. Ryan Presley ranks 37th. Oh, but it gets better. The Mariners trio had the better combined FIP than the Astros last year. Mariners were at 2.53. Astros were at 3.01. The Mariners had the better combined The Mariners had the better combined walks per 9 than the Astros bullpen last year. The Mariners trio combined for 3.34 walks per 9. Astros trio combined for 3.62. And the xERAs between these two are almost neck and neck. The Astros have the slight advantage. Houston's at 3.10. Mariners are at 3.12. You got the WAR. You got the FIP. You've got the walks per 9. Look, it's close. This Astros bullpen's really good. For the record, I think Brian Abreu is the best singular reliever of these 6. But of the trio, I'm taking the Mariners.
That's a really good argument. That's really good. I can't get over the fact that of the trio of Astros relievers we're comparing against, one had an ERA of 1.28. Let me repeat myself. 1.28 last year. That was Josh Hader's ERA last year. The other one, Brian Abreu, had an ERA of 1.75 last year. And the third guy, Ryan Presley, is the longest tenured and most consistent year-to-year reliever of the 3. I mean, this dude had a sub-3 ERA for every season since he's been an Astro, until last season, of course. I mean, he had wins above replacement since 2018, 1.8, 1.6, and the COVID season, 2.4, 1.4, 1.1. He's getting a little older, but reliability factor is unbelievable. Here's how I'm going to frame this. I think this Mariners trio has better stuff than the Astros trio. That's a hot take in of itself. But I think the Astros trio in the past has executed better and has proven on the field that they've been a better trio. That can change this year with different results. But for now, I would still slightly go with the Astros. Trio. Just the trio. We're just talking 3 guys. That's all we're talking about. We don't want to talk whole bullpens. That's a different discussion.
Josh Hader walked a lot of guys last year. I know his ERA was low, but he walked a lot of guys. That isn't the greatest sign in the world. That signals there could be some regression next year. I don't know.
Yeah, and he had a regression year. He had one in 2022. He had an ERA over 5. But the year before that, he had another sub 1.5 ERA. Like, that's at the end of the game, at the end of the day, Lyle, it is about run prevention. We do love our expected numbers, but once the season has come around, Josh Hader has not allowed very many runs. So
It's true. But I told you I was going to save this argument for the show because, again, there's a lot of categories you go down the list where this trio of Mariners guys is ahead of Houston. So I think most people will look at Hader, they'll look at Abreu, they'll look at the sub-2 ERAs and say, yeah, it's them. And then you throw in Ryan Presley, too, who's been a model of consistency. But I think this Mariners trio has a case. I really do. I'm sure it'll all play out during the year. And this is just supposed to be a fun exercise and a good way of saying both these bullpens are going to be very good. But that's how much better I think the Mariners pen just got with Gregory Santos.
That's enticing.
Let me throw one more thing in. Gregory Santos, I think I said it before, but just to make it clear, Gregory Santos has the highest ZiPS projection for all relievers in F4 for 2024. Highest one. He is number one. He's ahead of everybody. Ahead of Edwin Diaz. Ahead of everybody. That's pretty exciting.
That is pretty exciting. There's one more argument I think you want to make.
I do. After everything the Mariners have done, and I know we said it after the Jorge Polanco trade, but I'm going to say it again here after the Santos trade. Jerry DiPoto and Justin Hollander. I want to get better about giving Hollander a lot of the credit for this because he deserves a ton of it. He's the GM now. He negotiates a bunch of these deals. Jerry and Justin deserve a ton of credit for what they've done. Again, this offseason, traded for Luis Urias. We'll see how he does. Traded for Jorge Polanco, signed Mitch Garver, traded for Luke Raley, traded for Mitch Haniger, now trades for Gregory Santos, and they've got a bunch of money left to spend at the deadline or throughout the year. So that being said, after all the moves the Mariners have made this winter, can they win the AL West?
They can. Do you know the Vegas projections aren't that far apart? The bubble of the top three teams in the American League West. The Rangers, according to FanDuel, are at 92. Rangers. The Astros, according to FanDuel, are at 92.5. The Rangers are at 89.5, and the Mariners are at 86.5. I do believe they took Gregory Santos into account with this. It said it had updated that day, so we're gonna roll with that. So that is 6 wins separating the 3 teams for the Vegas projections. There's 2 teams on the end and 1 team in the middle. And you know what? Over the course of 162 game schedule, 6 wins is almost definitely within the margin of error for a season. So that leaves me to say yes. I don't think the Mariners are a favorite. I still think the Astros should be a favorite because they have the best combination of hitting and pitching in the division. I don't know how much people can dispute that because they're pretty loaded. But there is no perfect team in the American League West. This isn't the 2019 Astros. Shit, this isn't the 2017, 18, or 19 Astros. This isn't the 2022 Astros who won the World Series. I mean, last year's Rangers team by no means was a juggernaut in the regular season, but they got it done when it came to postseason. I think there are 3 equally flawed teams that could win the American League West next season. Pick whatever strength you want of any of these 3 teams. The Mariners have the best starting rotation. The Mariners have the best bullpen. The Rangers have the best lineup. The Astros have the best combination of the 2. So it all depends on what you favor and how you're going to pick this starting lineup. But there's a real case that you could definitely talk yourself into the Mariners winning the American League West next year. Now, if they went out and made one more marquee signing or one more marquee acquisition, Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger, Matt Chapman, if they did one of those 3, then you and I would be on here carrying the water for the Mariners to win the American League West this season. Flat out.
I might already be talking myself into the Mariners winning the American League West. I just look at where they stood at the end of last year. They were 2 wins shy of catching both Texas and Houston. This is a team that had problems in the rotation with injuries a lot of the year. They relied on rookies who were awesome. The offense could not get out of its own way half the time. They were leaving all these guys on base. They were 6-14 in extra inning games last year, which was one of the worst records in extra innings in all of baseball. I don't think that's going to happen again. There's a lot of reasons to believe this team can win the West with their pitching, with their bullpen, and with the offense now, I think marginally signals that it's only slightly improved. No, I think it is a full step improved than where it was at the end of 23. I think they could win the West. I do. Am I going to be shocked if Texas or Houston wins it instead? No. I think the Mariners can absolutely win the American League West.
Yeah. I just can't talk them above Houston. I can't do it. You know, like I wanted to, and then I took a peek. Did you know the Astros in their current lineup? I'm not even going to get to their pitching staff yet. Their current lineup, they have 3 players in Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, and Jose Altuve, who have multiple peak seasons higher than any peak season of any of the 9 players in the Mariners lineup. 3 players. That's what we call an aircraft carrier. And I don't think this is a hot take. Like Julio, love you, dude. He's been a real aircraft carrier in the lineup for about a month in his major league career. Like a true unstoppable force in the lineup.
I think a lot of 2022 he was that. You look at his numbers from May and on of
aircraft carrier. Like
May and on of 2022 by WRC Plus, he was a top 5 hitter in baseball. I would call that an aircraft carrier. No? I think he is an aircraft carrier.
Not to the level of his counterparts, who I just mentioned.
Okay, he's not Yordan Alvarez.
No.
What makes him so superior to Kyle Tucker? Or sorry, inferior to Kyle Tucker?
Because he has not had the production at the plate that Kyle Tucker has had in the same years that they've been playing. Kyle Tucker is a better hitter by WRC plus.
Okay, sure. He was last year, right?
Yeah, and when Julio's in the minors in 2021, it was like Kyle Tucker's gone 140, 126, and 144. I think I have that right. In the last 3 seasons.
Again, you throw out that month of April for Julio in 22. I don't know how you're calling him anything else.
I mean, I could throw out months of Kyle Tucker too. I'm not trying to slight Julio. I'm just saying what the numbers say.
Okay. We can agree to disagree on that one. I think that the Astros, again, obviously are on paper a better offense than the Mariners. Obviously, you didn't even talk about Alex Bregman. You didn't talk about how good Yainer Diaz was last year.
Right.
It's a good offense. That being said, the only reason the Astros won the division last year is because George Kirby shut out the Rangers in a meaningless game 162. That happens, then the Rangers win the division. Astros come in second. I don't know what their run looks like from there on out. Otherwise, maybe they play somebody else. Maybe they lose. Again, maybe they would have lost to the Orioles if they had played those guys. But if that had happened, would you be saying anything different about Houston right now? I don't know.
Maybe. But all we have to do right now is look on paper. That's all we got. That's why I know you and I just can't wait until they start playing games so we can start formulating opinions on what actually happens on the field. It's not out of the question. It is within the margin of error right now for the Mariners to win the American League West. And if you think the Mariners can win the American League West, like that is a completely fair, logical idea to have. I would not I could disagree, but it's not crazy.
I'm with that. I think it's going to be another really fun year in the AL West. I think there's going to be 3 teams that are going to be pretty neck and neck all year, which makes for some fun baseball. I just wish it wasn't still about 2 months away. I'm itching for it. I know we're getting close to spring training, but I think I'm already itching for real regular season baseball. I think everybody is. Okay, let's take a quick pause. Let's talk about our friends over at Pagac's Pub 85, because what do we like to do? We like to go hang out there because they have great food. Make sure to try their pizza. They have a full drink menu. They got a pool table in the place. They got 22 TVs in the place. It's just a perfect spot to go hang out with your friends. You want to watch games. You want to just sit back and talk, catch up. Again, you want to go out to eat. It's got it all. And if you go during happy hour, they've got some good drink specials, some really good drink specials. They are from Monday through Friday. That's happy hour from 2 to 6 p.m. They feature $3 domestic beers, $4 Manny's Blue Moons, $4 Mac and Jacks, $4 Wells, and $4 house wines. Those are some pretty good deals. So you want to catch some of those and hang out with your friends? Head over to Pagac's Pub 85 in Kirkland. Well, I think we had another pretty good guest on this week, if I can say so myself.
Another member of the Mariners broadcast team. And I mean this in a very polite way to Dave Sims. I always forget how old he is. So I don't really... it never really dawns on me how much sports and how much baseball he has seen in his life. It's truly incredible, and I think a lot of it comes out here in this discussion. I mean, there's a notable photo that I bring up in this interview of him interviewing a very, very famous baseball player that just and it looks from eons ago, but Dave like remembers it like it was yesterday and brings out some of the really cool stories of the people he grew up watching in Philadelphia. And it's so cool. And Dave is, he's such an awesome dude and a nice guy. And really, as I said in the beginning, if you like stories, like this is a conversation for you because he has a ton of them.
You want stories about old time baseball? He's got them. You want stories about the nicknames he comes up with for players? He's got them. You want the stories about those broadcast cameras being inside the booth for some of his iconic moments? That's in this interview too. And to your point, I'll say about the age thing, you never know it listening to him call a game, especially when he calls a big moment. He sounds like he's just broke in basically by the energy he has, which is a credit to Dave for how much he captures the audience at every big moment. That makes him so that's part of what makes him so great at what he does. And he's just like that in the interview too, which we really appreciate it.
All right, let's get to our interview now with Mariners broadcaster Dave Sims. All right, we welcome on Mariners broadcaster Dave Sims. Dave, thank you so much for taking some time to join us here today. So off seasons, you spend broadcasting basketball back on the East Coast. So question to start you off here. While you're calling basketball, which one of your catchphrases from baseball do you miss using the most?
TJ and Lyle, thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it. I can't use giddy up because nobody's hitting the ball out of the yard, but I throw in a hey now. And there was a game I did, I can't remember. It was the Creighton Seton Hall triple overtime game Saturday a week ago. And a kid came down for Creighton on the right side, and he had been hot, and he caught it in rhythm and let it rip. And hey now, but that's about it. Yeah.
You could use giddy up on a dunk, right?
I'll try to work it in Saturday. I got Marquette at Georgetown Saturday and Villanova hosting Providence Sunday. So maybe we can work it in.
How'd these calls come to fruition over the years? Did you just think of them on the fly, or did you give it some thought?
That's a really good question. I wasn't like, I got to have a catchphrase. It was just like, going with it, I think I'm quite visceral in my broadcasting. I really get into the feel of flow, and hey now was something without cussing or anything. And I remembered that from I know Howard Stern uses it. Was on the Gary Shandling show years ago. Jeffrey Tambor, who played Hank Kingsley, who was like an Ed McMahon announcer. And you go, hey now, here's Gary, one of those kind of things. So I remembered that, and I threw it out there one time. I think that was one I ran by my two sons. I said, yeah, go for it. Why not?
I think I remember correctly with your Nelson Cruz one, your boomstick baby, that you didn't even going into the season have one for him. I think that was correct. And it came up the first time he hit a home run and you stuck with it.
Well, when his time in Texas, when we'd walk to the clubhouse, you'd see this big, you guys are too young to remember Oscar Mayer Wiener, but it was like a golf cart with this big old, oversized, a million times bigger hot dog bun thing, and it had boomstick on it, and that was his name. Long story short, Slick Leonard, who was a good player and a coach in the NBA, ABA, when Reggie Miller would hit a shot from three, go boom, baby. So I put it all together. I ran it by my sons, ran it by Nelly, and then he loved it. He absolutely loved it. I remember his first year with us was 15, I believe it was, and he had a good month of April. And so every day, like going to the clubhouse, he says, come here. And he gets his iPhone out and he starts playing. Somebody had done a mashup, and all you hear was, boom, steak, baby, Nelson Cruz. And he showed all these home runs. He was like, he enjoyed it. And boy, I tell you what, I miss him. Not only because, those calls are done, but just a great guy. And he was such an incredible part of what we had there for 4 years.
How much do the players remember and maybe repeat back your catchphrases to you? Because I was reading a Daniel Kramer article that I think he wrote last season, and he was saying that Cal, when the Mariners put the GoPro in the booth to capture you, and you're saying, hey now at the top of your lungs, and Cal comes up to you, and he was quoting that article. He's like, the pitch to Acevedo.
Yeah,
and I'm sure he's got the whole call memorized.
Right. That's funny because my wife even said when she saw it, she said, "Why were you like singing Acevedo?" I don't know. It's just going. I'm watching. Here's a pitch from Acevedo. And Cal said his whole family does it now, or did it, right after that. There was one time last year I was either had a day off or I wasn't on TV. Teoscar Hernandez hit a home run, so I see him the next day. Hey, man, I wanted to hear you call my home run. And I thought that was hilarious. That was so I think the next time he hit a home run, I made sure I saw him that day or the next day and said, hey, I nailed that one for you.
Did you run by the Murph by Tom Murphy before that one started? Because that's one I always loved.
Nah, Kevin Lockery, who was a coach of the Nets years ago when I was covering the NBA, and he was a pretty good player, good shooter. And I never knew why, but his nickname was the Murph. And so it just sort of fit. It was just like, I get the speaker that's going bozo here. That was just sort of a natural career. It just felt good. I mean, baseball's all about nicknames. You got to have fun with that. I mean, we got great nicknames in the history of the sport. And the Murph, and I know a lot of Irish guys, so I mean, it just sort of fit. I'm gonna miss him too. He's a good guy, really good.
He was. Do you have any inklings on some new ones for this season? Care to?
I haven't thought about it. When it happens, it happens. I'm not sitting here and like before I hooked up with you guys. I'm trying to work ahead. I get these 2 games at the end of the week, so I like to be ahead of schedule. I'm here, in the house by myself. My kids are grown. My wife's visiting her mother, so I got time to like jam and get my stuff down. Yeah, so I'm not even really thinking that much about baseball because when we get to it, it's going to be immersive. So, and it's going to be fun. And if we come up with some more nicknames, so be it.
So I want to jump to the 2021 season, and I mentioned the GoPro aspect of them sticking the GoPro in the booth, and your 2 calls, the first one of the Mitch single in 2021, and then, of course, the Cal clincher in 2022 were 2 of the most viral moments in Mariners history, and it's accompanied by you on video, and it's really fantastic, but the first time they walked in there and said, hey, we're going to set a camera up and point it at you instead of at the field, I mean, what was your reaction?
Well, I got it. They said, listen, we haven't been in playoffs in eons, so we got to document this. This could be an historic occasion. Tim Walsh and his crew, and he was new to the club that year. And, we got to memorialize this. This is a big deal. I mean, you're talking, 01 since the last playoffs. And I thought it was a great idea, but I never thought, I wasn't playing to the camera. Who was it? Dick Bremer, the Twins veteran TV guy, good guy, good broadcast, very good broadcast. He says, was that you that put the I said, dude, come on, you know me well enough. That's not how it rolled. Come on. He said, it was our social media guys. And I told him the same thing. He says, okay, good. He says, it was really good. It worked. And so that's how it came about. And it was great. Driving home, my phone was going, it was just buzzing and going crazy. And the same thing happened, a year later when Cal, they got us into the playoffs. So, yeah, it's been fun. And I'd like to think I was pretty much on the map, but that certainly reinforced it. That's for darn sure.
I am curious about the Cal Raleigh home run call. And one reason I wanted to ask you about this is because big league ball players are big league ball players for many reasons, but one reason why, because they're not fazed by the big moment. It's the same thing with big league broadcasters. You live for it, and when it happens, you're not fazed by it. That being said, and you didn't know it was going to happen by a walk-off home run, but when you started to get the inkling that, okay, the Mariners are going to clinch, whether it's a day before, a week before, whenever, was there any little extra signal going off in your head saying, all right, when this happens, I got to nail it?
Well, yeah, you got to nail it. Don't screw it up, and don't trip over your tongue. But that happens in a moment. You're not thinking about, like, had I rehearsed something and then I would have been trying to hunt and peck to try to remember it, screw that. I mean, if I was that good remembering lines and all that stuff, I would have gone on and been an actor. I mean, I think there's wannabe actor stand-up comic in my deep in my bones. But that was just a reaction. And that's the best way for me, and I think a lot of guys would probably agree with that. The best way to go with it. I mean, let it come from your heart and your soul and your head, man. And that's what I did. And Lord knows, I've been around long enough with the Mariners to know the situation and know the hurt, the disappointment, and certainly I had anticipated. I always wondered what the joy would feel like. I think I showed it on that.
Are you able to put into words like the emotions you felt that night? Like, we've talked to so many fans about what that night meant to them and the drought and et cetera. And you come over from the East Coast in 2007 to take this job with the Mariners. Just like Scott told the players, say the drought's not on you. Don't worry about it. Just like you came in and the drought was already started, but you saw a big bulk of that. So when that night happens and everyone's in the stand celebrating, I mean, what's going through your mind as well as that night goes on?
Oh, the adrenaline was in the left lane doing 95 in a 35 mile an hour zone. I mean, it was tremendous. That could be, those are once in a lifetime moments, and you savor it and you enjoy it. And I think probably my biggest thanks is I didn't cuss or anything. It's like, you better freaking believe this, or, something like that, something stupid. And that was, it wasn't the case. I nailed it. And I feel good about it to this day. And what was it? So Cal said it was a 22 season. So last year we go to Chicago and play the Cubs early in April. Unseasonably warm day. And the first day, and I'm down on the field, and Cubs are taking BP. And I'm walking up towards the cage, and David Ross, and I said, I got to meet David Ross. I'd met him once before, but very briefly. And I come in, he turns around, he's walking back to the dugout, and he didn't even say hello. He reached out, shook my hand, tapped me on the chest. He says, dude, that call was the best. He says, I play it to get fired up. And I've had Aaron Judge, Kevin Kiermaier, what's my boy's name? Kyle with the Phillies, used to Schwarber, whole bunch of guys after the Haniger call elicited a lot of response, but because the Cal clincher got us into the playoffs, and so many people saw it, and to have players who you like watching and admire from afar come up to you and say, dude, you crushed that call, you killed it. And Judge and other guys and Kiermaier said, when I'm going to get jacked up, I play that call. I said, whoa, that's deep. That's really cool. That's unbelievable.
Did Aaron Judge come up to you and say something about it?
Well, I know him, just hi, how are you? But we would always chat every time we played the Yankees. And then I think it was I think that year they came to us first. So that was the first time he had seen me since the call. Yeah, and I have a picture, and he was like, dude, I was so happy for you, and it was great, and really enjoyed it.
I know you're big on before the game. Outside of the numbers and anything else going on in whatever given matchup is going on that night, you like going down on the field pregame and talking to whoever possible. Where did that start? Where did the curiosity of wanting to talk to and know as many people as possible
you gotta have something to talk about? But foremost, I learned that as a newspaper guy when I any sport, and especially baseball, because you have entree that you don't quite have. You don't have in the NBA. You do. You can go in the clubhouse, but here in baseball, you can go out in the field and hang out at the cage, and hang out in the dugout, hang out in the clubhouse, and you'd be crazy not to do that. I mean, and I don't believe in, the numbers are the numbers, and the analytics getting into, third and fourth level. I try not to get into that quite too deeply, because the game's going on and you don't want to throw out some stuff that needs an explanation. Meanwhile, the guys hit a ball 400 feet and, you're talking about, the numbers are the numbers. They're great, and they have a purpose. But it's all about, for me, and what I've grown up with, and from what I've learned at the various places I've worked over the years, it's about storytelling. And it's about who's hot, who's not, why, what's XYZ players' motivation, what were some moments that they had that that was a jump off point for their success. And it's all about humanity. And that's what I believe in. And that's why I'm down there all the time. I mean, it's great to just, hey man, hey, what do you got for me today? Hey, what's going on? Hey, what happened last night in that game? You know, hey, that slider really sucked in the seventh inning. Yeah, I know. It's like, and I lost. You know, you get explanations and you get stories, little nuggets like that. And they don't have to be long stories. They can be 10-second stories, 15-second stories. But that kind of information accentuates the viewing pleasure, and it elucidates the viewer as to, you know, and especially fans, when you're a home team guy, people want to know as much as possible without, you know, getting too personal. I'm not asking anybody for the PIN number, but I mean, you know, you want to be able to bring their personalities up front, and people really like that. And I know as a consumer, I like it. I like to hear, you know, what kind of guy, like today or yesterday. I had Twitter on or something. I was watching the football and I saw the Mariners were trending, and I clicked on it and I saw that they signed Cole Tucker, who a kid I met when he was with Pittsburgh, and really fine, really good guy. And just if he ever becomes a good hitter and can be a starter, I mean, he's got the look, he's got the charisma, he's smart, he's bright, he's got the whole thing. And, you know, those are the kind of kids you want to bring to the table. And I love meeting those guys. So yeah, that's what we got.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but has there ever been a story or two in your time with the Mariners that over the time you spent down on the field in the clubhouse talking to guys, you got something from somebody where you said, that'd be a great story to tell on the air. People would be fascinated by that.
Well, you know, growing up as a newspaper guy, you know, I worked in Philly and New York as a newspaper guy. My days of being, of admiring, I still admire Woodward and Bernstein, but in terms of breaking stories that have more of a negative bent, or you know, I'm not trying to take down anybody. I've probably, anything that I don't really look for that kind of information. I fall into some things here and there. Yeah, you know, I know what to put on the air. I know what not to put on the air.
Oh, I was actually thinking more in like a positive light. Like, is there anything you picked up from guys in a positive light where it's like, oh, this would be fascinating to share with fans?
I generally put it on the air. If I get something good like that, it's you know, I keep a notebook with me. I'm you know, even if I just have I'll have an indirect quote or put a couple of keywords that'll going to stimulate the old noggin here to the conversation. But yeah, I mean, generally, if you hear me talking about it, I've generally either read it or talked to the guy directly.
7 years, David, go ahead, Lyle.
No, go ahead, TJ.
I was going to say, Dave, so 7 years at the New York Daily News, and then you really pushed your chips in and you went all in on sportscasting. What was the moment where you made the dedication, this is what I'm going to do full time, and we're going to go chase the dream?
Well, I always wanted to. I mean, it was the dream all along since I was 10. I mean, I was broadcasting little, you know, dice baseball games and card baseball games and, you know, electric football, you know, where the men go, you should Google that. You know, we used to actually get off on that. The football games, you set up all 11 guys, press a switch, and the table, the field vibrates, and the players go like that. So I've been doing this all my life. So when my first TV job, satellite news channel, it was doing sports news at 15:45. My first play-by-play job. When was that? I came after I'd done 3 years at WNBC Radio, 50,000 watts, 48 states at night, clear channel. I think the thing that really fired me up was getting a Temple radio job, and I got to do, you know, Division I football, and that led to ESPN, et cetera, et cetera. So I've known all along this is what I wanted to do. You know, and from my standpoint, you know, as you probably realize, I'm the only African American doing play-by-play on TV, and maybe fifth or sixth ever in the history of the game. And Robert Ford's the only other African American black guy who's doing play-by-play full time. He does the Astros. Good guy, great broadcaster, New York guy, went to Syracuse. So this is a big deal for both of us. To be able to do this. And I knew, you know, I knew I was ready at like 30. I got this job. I got the Mariner job. I was in my mid-50s for crying out loud. So I'm glad I was able to stick around and persevere. And and I'm having a good run. I've had some unbelievable jobs, learned a lot, seen a lot, and I tell you what, it has all been a great foundation in this gig doing Maryland baseball for sure.
I kind of want to pick your brain about something you learned when you were at WNBC. There's a picture that in that Daniel Kramer article that he put on MLB.com, you getting to interview Willie Mays on WNBC Sports Night. First of all, love the mustache. But as someone as yourself who grew up watching Willie Mays and Hank Aaron, I mean, how cool is that when you got to sit him down and talk to him in person?
I was amazed I was able to breathe. And it's funny, prior to that, there was a charity softball game one time, and a friend of mine called and said, hey, we need you to come up to New Rochelle. Got this game going on, and Willie Mays is going to be there. And I said, excuse me? He said, yeah, Willie Mays is going to play. I said, get the hell out of here. So I drive up, and I pull in the parking lot, and I see this guy playing first base. I said, that can only be one guy, the way he throws, the way he catches. I actually played a softball game with Willie Mays. Interviewed him on the Core Sports Night show, which was a simulcast, WNBC Radio and MSG Network. And he was pumping a book, and we knew about 2-3 weeks out that he was coming on. And when I was doing WNBC Radio, I always talked about growing up. My father took me to games. And I said, matter of fact, in 3 weeks, Willie Mays is going to join us. And people went nuts. Flash forward to that date when Willie came in the studio. We and the Garden used to have this Hall of Fame club, which is really a nice little room. And we probably, on a normal night, we'd have, for the simulcast, we had 50. We might have had 200 people. Grown men stood and cried when Willie Mays came in. And the same thing happened when we had Mickey Mantle on. Stood up and go, see, I told you, Willie Mays. And those were two of the coolest moments I've ever had. Another time I interviewed Hank Aaron. He was on, because I worked at WNBC with 30 Rock. David Letterman was at 30 Rock at the time. And Hank Aaron was on, and I remember going upstairs, and my show was on at 7:30. Letterman taped 5:30 to 6:30. So we had the in-house feed, and I saw that Mr. Aaron was coming on. So I ran upstairs, and I said, "Which door is Hank Aaron going to come out?" And the guy pointed right over there. I waited for him. I all but tackled him when he came in out of the studio, and I told him who I was. I said, "If you give me a couple of minutes downstairs, we can record something." He said, yes, we did a half hour. The guy was spectacular. Do I have the tape? No, I don't know where the tape is. I have it. It's somewhere. I just can't find it. I got a million tapes. But those days, and the only guy that from my youth that I wanted to interview that I haven't had a chance, and I sure would like to get it done. Sandy Koufax, bless his heart, he's 88, maybe 89 on December 31, I think it was. But I've interviewed Jim Brown, Chamberlain, Kareem, Magic, Ron, Mike, not Tiger, but Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, McEnroe. I mean, so many guys. Ali, Frazier, Foreman. I mean, so I've interviewed a million guys, and I've been very lucky in that regard.
Are a bunch of those interviews from your show with Coach K, or did they come from some broadcasts too?
That was stuff. A lot of that was stuff we did at WNBC and WFAN, and then with the Basketball and Beyond with Coach K, we had Mrs. Barbara Bush. We've had CEOs. I mean, heavy hitters. A lot of them Duke guys. We've had pretty much everybody in sports. I mean, Nick Saban, Belichick, LeBron, Kobe, Chuck, the Chuckster. No, we didn't have Larry Bird, but we've had Bill Walton. So I've had entree to a lot of guys, who's who, the sports world over, the course of my career, and during the 19 years I worked with Coach K. Yeah.
That's an incredible list, Dave. Like that, I couldn't even imagine how you prepare for one, let alone all those lists of guys. So it's been good, man. It's been good. And I've worked with 100 guys. I mean, I've worked with Jay Billis and Mike Tal and Billy Packer, and a lot of good dudes, man. The late great Denny Green. I did a game with Dan Reeves, Jim Mora, Hall of Famers, James Lofton,
John Riggins, Rod Woodson. I mean, I've been unbelievably lucky in that regard. Yeah.
So when you were growing up in the Philly area and you're getting into sports broadcasting, was baseball at the top of the list? Was it always number one?
No question.
Okay.
Yeah, no question. Every form of baseball, taking a stick, a bat, and hitting something with it, I've done. Half ball, used a tennis ball, wiffle ball. I played 4 years of baseball. 4 years started baseball in high school. Co-captain senior year, 2-time MVP. I was a catcher, and I played a couple years in college. So I mean, baseball. I mean, people always. Somebody asked me that the other day. Of all the sports that you've done, I mean, football, baseball, basketball. I did one time. I've done boxing. I did a sumo wrestling meet one time, which was really weird. But of the three main sports that you've done, which one do you love most? And I said, it's like asking which one of my kids do I love the most. They're all great. They're different. They're exciting as heck. And I've been blessed to be able to do all that stuff.
So with that, before you even started to have the inkling that you were in the running for the Mariners job, like growing up in your early stages in your career, how much was Seattle as a place, I guess even on your radar? Because you're a Philly guy, New York roots, went to college in West Virginia. Like you're an East Coast guy at your core.
I-95, baby. I-95. Let's see. I knew of Seattle. I was always good in geography. When I was covering the NBA, was out there 3-4 times. And 89 NBA All-Star game was there. I came out, and I think I just went to that as a fan. I don't think I was working that. The 95 Final Four came out as a fan. So, and my wife almost went to UW for post-grad. So that, and then, when I was doing ESPN, I know I did I did a couple games at the Kingdom. One, I worked with Jerry Royce. Mariners got a hold, really roughed up Roger Clemens in an April game we did. I want to say 93. 94 probably came out, and then 05, 04, 05, something like that. I was out there for some games. But, I mean, who knew it was going to be, working at Seattle and going into year 18? It was never a thought. Why would there have been?
So how did it start to come about? Like when you started to get the rumblings that it was going to be open and you may be somebody they consider?
The guy who's now my boss, Kevin Martinez, I knew him from his days at Syracuse with my brother-in-law. I did liners for them when they were doing radio at baseball in Syracuse. And then, like I said, I came out there a couple of times for ESPN. And I said I liked it. It's a good-looking town. I wasn't enamored of the Kingdom, but I mean, I think the second 2 times I was out there was at Safeco Field. I said, it's pretty cool. I said, if anything ever happens, let me know. And then, flash forward to Halloween 06, get a call, sent in a tape, got the job. I mean, long story short. So, and I've enjoyed the heck out of it. So I continue to enjoy it and rooting like heck that, we can get something done this year.
So diving even a little further into it, I've always been really, really curious how an interview for a big league broadcaster goes. Like I'm assuming you have to fly out there at least once or twice. And when you do that, like who are you sitting down with? What questions are they asking you? Like what are they having you do any type of other things other than sitting around answering questions?
They'd seen the tape. They liked the tape. I was a finalist. I sat down in a boardroom, long boardroom, one rectangle. I was sitting in the middle, and there must have been 12 or 13 people in there. And I had questions fired at me. How would you handle this situation? And, what's your philosophy on this, that type of stuff. And I think basically it was just, they wanted to get a feel. It wasn't like a prosecution, but, they were throwing questions. And it's funny, the little school I went to, Bethany College, that's how to graduate, you had to go through a written exam and oral comprehensive. And when I sat down and saw all these people in the room, I said, I got this because I've done this before. And I wasn't freaked out at all. It was comfortable. And it just was myself. And we'll go from there. I mean, obviously, they liked the tape. I think my references were pretty extraordinary. I mean, I had a lot of, top shelf people vouching for me. And here we are.
So, Dave, I want to fast forward then to 2012, a very memorable year for Mariners fans, and especially for you as a broadcaster. How long did it take to set in that you became the first television broadcaster to ever call 2 perfect games in one season?
Wow. Every time I hear that, I always think Scully had to have beaten that. I find it hard to believe I hold that distinction, but no, it's cool. I mean, I had called the Umber Perfecto against the Mariners. We were only on in Seattle and Chicago, and then they came to us final 3 outs. I think it was final 2 outs. And that was in April. Then August, Felix throws the Perfecto, and that was amazing. And I had never been in a situation. I didn't even call a no-no at that point. So Perfecto by Umber was pretty cool. It was really cool. I was working with Eric Karros, and to this day, I mean, we have that in common every time I see him. Hey, what's up, buddy? But then, obviously, Felix was at his prime. He throws that no-no 1-0 against Tampa Bay later on in August. Was August 15th, I think it was. And that was special. And I remember, when Umber threw the perfect game, that was a Saturday. And I remember my wife and I went out to dinner at Hapanesa on First Avenue. And my phone was blown up, but a good friend of mine called me and he said, "The brothers at the lodge want to tell you you're the first black guy to call something like that." I was like, "Hey, thank you very much." Hey, and then the emotion from the Felix, because he was our guy, he was the king, and he was the best thing we had during those years. I mean, never forget it. And until when I first got to Seattle, I thought the biggest broadcast moment I had was 2006, George Mason upsetting UConn to go to the Final Four. That was number one. And then the Umber was number one. And then the Felix was number one. And then the Haniger was my number one call, but now it's the Cal Raleigh call. So there's just some good moments there.
I have to just go back, start at the Umber one, because we could probably spend the rest of the day on the Felix one. Did Brendan Ryan swing?
It's awfully close. It's really close. It's really close.
I was gonna say, I'm sure you are glad for the call's sake. That he decided to argue instead of run it out, because he would have beat it.
Yeah. I mean, baseball justice, I guess. Brendan's a good dude, and he's a really good guy. I enjoyed having him here. What a personality. That was an incredible moment, and I don't think Philip Umber. Well, he's got that memory for a lifetime, forever, because I don't think much, he didn't have a whole lot of success after that, but he's always got that moment.
So then if we're going to fast forward to the Felix one, when you guys start to get the sense of what's going on, are you guys silent between innings in the booth too? Like, do you guys not want to say anything?
I don't believe in that stuff. My newspaper background, and as a consumer, if a guy's throwing a perfect game, I don't believe in this, I don't want you copying off my test here in 4th grade. It does, get out of here. Broadcaster, not narrowcaster. That whole thing about not saying anything, that's what the boys do in the dugout. God bless them. Let them have it. No problem. And Ozzie Smith, I remember, was at a charity golf event. And I told Ozzie I did that. What'd you do that for, man? You're going to mess around. I said, hey, please. I said, if I had that kind of power, you know how many rings I would have right now? If my words were determining the fate and what's going on in the field. I said, dude, I have as many rings as Yogi Berra and Bill Russell. Get out of here. You got to tell the story. Late great Tim McCarver. He came up to me one time after Doug Fister had a no-no broken up by Nick Markakis, 7th inning at our place. And it was a Friday, and Tim was there to do a Saturday broadcast. I knew him a little bit, and real loved his wife. I was a huge fan. He and Joe Torre were my guys growing up. Anyway, because I was a catcher. He says, "Hey, what's this I hear about you talking about a no-hitter?" I said, "Really?" And I was getting ready to really? We're gonna do this? He says, "No, I'm just busting your chops." He says, "I'm glad you did it. That's the way you're supposed to do it." He said, "Let me tell you something." So one time I came home after a game, I put my bags down and turn on the TV, and there's a game on, and I go in the kitchen and I'm doing what I got to do, and then I come back. It's the 9th inning. The guy said, "So-and-so's got a perfect game." Now, if I'd known that in the 6th inning, I'd have sat my butt down and watched the game. So, I mean, that's the way I look at it. And the other thing, too, Mr. Scully said, Mr. Enberg said, Mr. Marty Brenneman. All these guys are Hall of Famers. David, call what you see. Tell us what's happening on the field. End of story.
No, so I'm with you on that, and as two people who have some broadcasting background, I'm with you. You have to tell the story when you're on the air. I guess I was just curious if off the air you were getting a little superstitious in your own right.
No, I wasn't getting superstitious. I was trying to keep from hyperventilating. I mean, I remember I threw the break one time. He's on the edge of immortality. Felix Hernandez, a perfect game and a 6. I was like, it's crazy.
Crazy.
So when the 8th inning and 9th inning of that game is rolling around, are you thinking this can't am I crazy? I think this is happening again. This already happened 4 months ago, and this is happening again.
And again, I tried to compose myself. And I had an idea. Now I will say, let me just sort of put a little shade on a little bit what I said earlier about having something thought about to say. I just wrote down, first time, and I kept telling the producer, I said, this would be the first. I said, I want to make sure I got this. And I wanted to put it in sort of a, say what happened. It's like when I was a newspaper writer, especially as for an AM paper, game ends, you got to write a bullet and lead 30, maybe 2 paragraphs or something. So basically I was just repeating history, which I had been trained to do. And that's what I did. Hey, 34 years, 190, whatever, yada, yada, yada. Perfect game thrown by a man, done by the king. I won't say I rehearsed it, but I had that nugget, the nuggets in there about first time and all. I made sure I had that. Yeah.
Dave, if we were going to start to wrap this up, I wanted to put you on the spot a little bit again. And I know you've highlighted a few of your favorite moments in your time with the Mariners, but if you had to pick 3 calls that you've had in your time in Seattle, do you have a top 3 favorite? Well,
was that 18? Yeah, 18. We flirted with the playoffs. Game 161. Nelly hits a 3-run homer to tie it at 7-7 in the 7th against Oakland. That's a moment I absolutely love that moment. There was a 15 inning game at home on a Sunday that Daeho Lee won on a walk-off home run against, who's that left-hander? He stole it.
Diekman, right?
Yeah, Jake Diekman. And then, of course, Cal and Mitch. Iwakuma's no-hitter was pretty cool. I remember Austin Jackson went into the left center field, sort of shallow left center field gap for the final out. So those are the ones that sort of – there was another one, there was a Jamie Burke game-winning home run like my first year. Ichiro hit a walk-off against Mariano Rivera at our place. A couple of Hall of Famers going to battle here. Ichiro is beating Mariano Rivera, and the Mariners won the game. That was so those come to mind. Jose Lopez had a game winner one time into an extra inning game that went forever. And I tell you, it was a loss. That loss to Houston, we had the 18-inning game, was one of the most exciting games I've ever been around at any time. I mean, everything was on the line, trying to stay alive, and and that's a series. Looking back on it, boy, I mean, I always tell Dusty Baker, says we had you. He says, yeah, you let us go. I mean, the Mariners won all 3 of those games, and had they won, they could have done some damage that year. And another year that Chris Young, who's the GM of the Rangers, when he was with the Mariners in 2014, Mariners pitching was really good. Deep staff, I think everybody made their starts. No injuries. Didn't hit really well, but the pitching was really good. And I remember seeing Chris the next year, and he said, man, there were so many guys out there. So glad we got eliminated because they were afraid of our pitching staff. I never forget. I remember he told me that story. I remember it to this day. And, because you had Felix, you had Kuma, you had CY, and a couple other guys were getting, I can't remember the rest of the staff. And the bullpen was solid. So those are some really good moments that come to mind, off the top of my head right now.
Last thing for me, Dave. What are you most looking to at spring training this year?
Well, just seeing it, like everybody says, you want to see the guys, you want to see, get to see Rick and, and Gary and Aaron and then, seeing the players, the new guys. Looking forward to seeing Julio. I'm sure he learned a heck of a lot last year. Glad to have Haniger back. I'm praying that he can play 157 games again like he did those 2 great years that he had with us. Who we got? We got Luke Raley's a new guy. We got Arias. I'm hoping that they'll be big contributors. Everybody knows, it's been relatively quiet. So hopefully, JP can come back and have another big year. I've always heard so many good things about Canzone as a hitter, so now he's going to be with us from day one. He's going to get a great opportunity. See the coaching staff and see all the guys. Who is it? Brent Brown is with us. Look forward to meeting. I think I've met him before, but looking forward to talking to him about his philosophy. Scott Service and Jerry and Pete Woodworth. I mean, you go on down the line. So, get back into the baseball routine again, man. It's a little bit different for us being where we are, and with the travel we have to do, but it is what it is. We travel first class, we stay in first class hotels, so I'm not beefing, but at all. So no, I'm looking forward to it, man. It's going to be fun.
Well, Dave, we really appreciate taking some time to join us here today. As you said, spring training right around the corner. It's going to be sunny. It's going to be warm. Vibes are going to be good. So we're looking forward to it. So appreciate you, Dave, again, taking some time to join us here today. It was awesome.
I really appreciate it, guys. And I'm looking forward to it. We had a bad weather day here in New York. It looked like it was dark at 2:00 and it was cold and windy all day. So, and I'm sure you guys have weather similar weather pattern out in Seattle. So you guys stay warm and try to get as much light on yourself as possible. Soak up the light. Looking forward to Arizona. Good to see you guys. Be well. Thanks a lot.
Really appreciate Dave Sims taking some time to join us. Before we wrap up the show, let's hear a word from BetterHelp. Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? Regardless, if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or you're just a human who lives in this world who is going through a hard time, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a very different way. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. And this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be really hard, especially when you're limited to options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. There's a link in our description. It's betterhelp.com/marinelayerpod. That's betterhelp.com/marinelayerpod. Clicking that link helps support this podcast, but also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp, so you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/marinelayerpod.
Well, that'll just about do it for this episode of the Marine Layer Podcast. You guys know the drill. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure to download, rate, and review 5 stars. It helps out a ton. The written reviews do too. You're watching on YouTube, again, that red subscribe button, it's free. Takes about a second to just click it. You're helping out the channel a bunch. Like, comment as well, and then follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.